I mean it when I say that my parents were completely unaware that I had moved out. Not only did they fail to notice, but my dad is now threatening to take away my college funds. To my astonishment, though, I've graduated 3 years ago. You see, I'm the youngest of 5, and by youngest I mean that I'm 7 years older than my next sister. Simply put, as a child, I was invisible. Since I wasn't one of the problem kids, my parents kind of forgot about me as my siblings dealt with their own problems. I suppose people assumed I was okay because I wasn't in the hospital all the time or in need of therapy all the time. Please understand that I wasn't in dire need, but after a while it became clear that I was the family's glass child, not particularly noticed but seen. It was like this. I was just there, while everyone else was in crisis mode. My parents were constantly preoccupied with whoever had the newest emotional or medical problem, and my siblings needed a lot. Since I wasn't adding to their worry, I was allowed to deal with things alone. I would hear others discussing how they had to take on tasks that required them to mature early in order to care for their siblings, but that wasn't me. My parents took care of everything. They simply ignored me since I didn't need their help. I kept to myself because no one inquired about my well-being. Since no one else was available to hang out, I spent a lot of time by myself reading, playing video games, and generally learning how to keep myself entertained. It wasn't like they were purposefully careless. However, I slipped between the cracks. I wasn't a priority if I wasn't experiencing a crisis. I understand that having 4 children with health problems meant they had a lot on their plate, but I just stopped needing attention and became the easy kid. I eventually made friends with Lily and Kara, 2 kids in my neighborhood who were going through similar things, when I was around 9 years old. Being the glass child meant that I was accustomed to this strange form of loneliness, so I managed. We sort of developed our own little circle because their families weren't really there for them either. Unspoken but evident, we connected and knew what it was like to be the ones that were forgotten. They eventually became like family to me, perhaps even more so than my own. Through school, college, graduation, and finally moving to a different state together, we were inseparable. After leaving home, I hardly ever spoke to my parents because we had created our own family out of what our biological families were unable to provide. And since we had seldom spoken during my time there, that felt typical. Occasionally, my mother would text me, inquiring about my employment or how school was going, or such trivial questions that hardly touched the surface. We had more than that when I was in high school, so at least it was something. We hardly spoke to one another at the time. I believe it was a call from my mother last year that made me realize how estranged we had become. She called out of the blue a few days before Thanksgiving. I kind of expected terrible news because we seldom ever phone each other. She last gave me a call the previous year to let me know where to go to my sister's burial. That was the extent of our conversation. In any case, she is calling to inquire about my Thanksgiving arrival time. And I sat there totally unprepared thinking, wait, what? Because, to put things in perspective, my family has never been big on holidays, and this is the first I've heard of any Thanksgiving plans. I think they attempted to do Thanksgiving or Christmas maybe 3 times in my life. Such customs simply did not exist in our culture. I was telling the truth when I told her that I had previously planned to go skiing with Lily and Kara. It wasn't like I could just hop over because I lived 2 states away. I understand, I truly do. However, she pretended that I was being difficult and guilt-tripped me about how she would be alone because my dad was seeing my brother at the facility he's in, which is 2 hours away. She did, however, give me 3 days' notice. I would need simple practicalities, like an airline ticket and some advance warning. She became irate, claimed I didn't care about the family, and hung up on me when I told her I couldn't make it. I was irritated and a little guilty after the call. They hadn't contacted me for months, and now I'm the bad guy because I didn't return home with 3 days' notice? I texted her that evening to let her know I had a ski trip scheduled for Christmas as well, but I would really like to catch up after the new year. I was attempting to maintain my composure and avoid allowing her last-minute guilt trip ruin my plans. She didn't respond. A few days later, I continued to feel strange about Thanksgiving in general, like if something wasn't quite right. It was strange that she called me out of the blue to apologize for my absence. They seemed to assume that I would know they wanted to see me without ever expressing it. In any case, I made an effort to ignore it and concentrate on preparing for Lily and Kara's ski trip. I was thrilled because we had been preparing it for months. We were all looking forward to spending some time together, skiing and getting away from the world because the three of us hadn't had a true break in a long time. Suddenly, I received a text from my dad. Since my dad seldom texts me, I reasoned that this must be significant. However, Dad says, "I'm stopping your college payments if you don't come home for Christmas," rather than something sensible. At first, I genuinely laughed. How much does college cost? 3 years ago, I received my diploma. I thought I might have missed something, but I read the message twice. He might be confused, so I texted him back to remind him that I had graduated and that he should check his bank account because someone was defrauding him if he believed he was paying my tuition. I assumed he would realize his error, feel a bit ashamed, and we would be done with it. However, a few hours later, he sends me another message in which he accuses me of being ungrateful and selfish, claiming that I didn't recognize the sacrifices they made for my brothers and me. To start, I never asked for anything from them. I had no idea that they were going to cover my education expenses. In fact, my grandmother paid for my tuition. She informed me that she didn't want my parents to be involved since she didn't think they wouldn't ruin things. I didn't even know what my dad was talking about, so I was simply angry now. Okay, they might be under stress, but accusing me of something they didn't even do? It was a new low. "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Grandma paid for my college." I texted again after taking a deep breath, trying to be as courteous as possible. I assumed that would end it, but I have plans already. But I'd be pleased to catch up after the holidays. My dad becomes all dramatic and accuses me of leaving the family, saying that I was ignoring them and that he was done helping me if I didn't try. I thought as I gazed at my phone, leave the family behind? I've spent years living alone. You hardly noticed. So I was the bad guy now, because I wouldn't abandon everything to spend Christmas at home? I couldn't stop thinking about it, even though I wanted to dismiss it. They hadn't checked in, inquired how I was, or spoken to me in months. However, I was meant to be there, prepared to cheer them up as soon as they asked for something. I contacted Lily and Kara to vent because I was only their fallback option. They both responded in the same way, stating that it sounded more like my parents wanted me there for themselves than for them to see me. Kara said, "Screw them," without holding back as usual. "You owe them nothing." I chose to take a break before answering once more. However, my phone buzzes once more as I'm lying there. This time it's just one line from my dad. "If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all." I simply felt numb. How did we get here? I asked myself, as I sat there and stared at the message. We hardly spoke, and now they're rejecting me because I won't be able to make it to their schedule? I felt like I didn't really belong in that house, and I wanted to lash out at them for all the times they disregarded me. However, I simply didn't answer. Unwilling to be drawn into some meaningless family dispute just before the holidays, I turned over and went to sleep. When I woke up the following day, I saw more texts, this time from my mother. It was the usual story, disappointed, hoping I'd change my mind and not understanding why I'm acting so aloof. I couldn't contain my laughter. They were only now realizing that I had been distant my entire life. Ignoring the texts, I concentrated on preparing for my ski vacation. I decided to go on with my ski trip because for once I had my own plans and my own life, and I wasn't going to let them pull me back into theirs. It felt good to be traveling with Lily and Kara after all the back-and-forth guilt trips, the deluge of messages on my phone, and my parents' desperate attempts to get me home. For once, I was able to put the family turmoil aside, at least temporarily. Naturally, the calm didn't last long. My phone buzzes in the middle of our journey, just as I'm attempting to have fun for once. My mother has sent me another message. They'll have to start making decisions about the future without me, if I don't return home soon, she continues, as if it were some sort of dire warning. But I can't even understand what she's implying. It still bothers me, but eventually it clicks. This goes beyond Thanksgiving and Christmas. They have something planned. They might have a plan for the property or family assets, Or they might be discussing one of my brothers. Whatever it is, they obviously wanted me around for something greater. All of a sudden, I realize that they don't want me to return for the holidays, to keep me close for whatever major thing they're planning. They want me back. The revelation is like a kick to the gut. Perhaps they wanted me there for the holidays, to boost their self-esteem, or to maintain appearances, I reasoned. I'm beginning to see the true tale, though. They need me for something. Therefore, they're attempting to reintegrate me into their orbit. The worst thing? I'm not even the main focus. When I finally figure it out, something inside of me just explodes. It's about what I can do for them. After being disregarded for so long, are they suddenly being brought back in because it suits them? I was finished. I choose to ignore the messages and concentrate on the trip, putting an end to the guilt trips, accusations, and their backup plan. We wind up discussing it over dinner that evening after Lily and Kara feel something is off. As direct as ever, Kara says it all. They're just trying to manipulate you. For no real reason, they don't want you back. Yeah, Lily says. They merely want you around so they can obtain something from you or feel better. They're right. They're merely making demands without even inquiring about you. Even though I knew it in my heart, hearing them say it made everything so much more obvious. With that, I conclude that my response is now complete. When we return, I feel rejuvenated, as if a great burden has been removed. I switch off my phone for the remainder of the journey, determining that whatever decisions they must make without my presence can proceed. I'm prepared to return to my life and concentrate on my goals, friends, and job. I don't feel bad about it for once. I feel liberated, but that feeling is fleeting. My oldest brother, Ethan, sends me a mail the very next day. Ethan has always been rather independent, leading a life of his own and handling his own affairs. He and I hadn't spoken in months, perhaps not longer. It was unexpected to see his name appear on my phone. His brief message reads, "Hey, we need to talk." I immediately get dubious, wondering whether he was simply duped like everyone else. "About what?" I reply via text. I nearly drop my phone as he responds with a single line. "Mom and Dad are planning to make you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're gone." I sit there dumbfounded, my heart pounding. Is this a joke? They want to force me to take on a lifetime of responsibility after essentially neglecting me for years? What are you discussing? With trembling hands, I reply to the text. Ethan reacts coolly, as though this isn't a huge concern. "You are aware of the dynamics between Mom and Dad. They are concerned about the boys' future after they leave. You're the only one who truly has it together, and they need someone stable." I can sense the rage building. So they believe I'm someone? They think I'll jump up and take over after neglecting me for years? Ethan doesn't understand my anger. They're in a difficult situation, you see. You are aware of the current situation. That's when it truly hits home. The rest of us aren't exactly in a position to help. Without ever speaking to me, my parents have been organizing this behind my back and have decided that I will be the responsible one. My fury is boiling now because they simply thought that I would follow suit, as if they could finally use me now that it's convenient. So they've been talking about this behind my back and intend to tell me everything. "Yeah, pretty much," acknowledges Ethan. I sat there silently, just gazing at my phone, trying to take in what I'm hearing. They wanted to get everything lined up first, but they were going to talk to you eventually. They seem to have just ever seen me as a fallback option in case things don't work out. They didn't give a damn about me when I was growing up, so why am I expected to clean up the mess now that they are in trouble? Ethan tries to defend it by stating that our parents are having a difficult time keeping up and that things have been difficult for them. However, I've had enough. I interrupted him. "See, I understand. They're under stress. However, this is not my mess. It's theirs. Since I'm the only one left standing, they expect me to step in even though they never gave a damn about what I was going through. No, I'm not doing it." After a brief silence, Ethan finally responds, "I understand. Yes, I do. However, you remain a member of the family. The word family makes me want to yell. When I was the unseen child growing up, where was family? I was only considered family when it suited them and they required my help. They were discussing lifelong responsibility after not speaking to me for months. I say icily, "Tell them I'm not interested." Before he can reply, I end the call and sit there silently, staring at my phone, feeling more deceived than I ever imagined. And don't call me about this again. I was the child they didn't care about and left to fend for myself my entire life. And now they believe they can simply rely on me as a fallback option? I've finished it. Until they need something, I'm done being invisible. A few days pass and neither Ethan nor my parents contact me. They seem to be waiting for me to come to my senses, to magically see the importance of family, and to rush back into their embrace. However, I refuse to give in. Not now. After everyone made their decisions, I'm now making mine. Suddenly, I receive a letter in the mail. It comes from my mother. As if we were living in the 1800s, she sent a letter without even calling. I nearly throw it away, but my curiosity wins out and I open it. The lengthy letter is chock full of the same deceptive bullshit I've heard my entire life. She tells about how difficult things have been, how much they need me, and how they are so proud of the person I've grown into. The worst part, though? The final line. "Oliver, we're not asking for much. We simply need to know that someone will take care of the family when we are gone." And that's when it dawns on me that this isn't about them needing assistance. Control is at issue here. Even if they have to coerce me into doing it, it's about making sure their trash gets cleaned up. They want me back because I'm handy, not because they miss or care about me. I shred the letter and throw it in the garbage. I'm done. I felt a rare sense of calm after throwing the letter away, as if I had finally released a burden. After years of them essentially ignoring me, I was tired of serving as their emergency solution, an unseen backup plan. It felt like breaking a chain I had been carrying around my entire life when I blocked their numbers and erased the old texts. But naturally, that tranquility didn't last. I've been blocking them for almost 2 weeks when someone knocks on my door. I assumed it was merely a delivery, possibly something I had ordered and forgotten about, because I wasn't expecting anyone. However, my mother is standing there as I open the door, as if she had every right to be there. She appears to be older, agitated. However, I no longer feel any pity for her. She was here, looking different but strangely the same, still expecting things to go her way. I don't know how she even found me, but I don't back down. "Why are you in this place?" She doesn't respond immediately away. Instead, she just looks at me as if she's looking for a reminder of the child she used to dismiss. I groan when she finally adds, "Oliver, we need to talk." "No, we don't at all. Everything I needed to say has been said. I've decided." I remain composed, speaking in a steady tone, but I can sense the frustration rising once more inside. She moves forward as if she intends to enter, but I remain in the doorway. I refuse to let her in. She can't make this into another guilt trip, in my opinion. She pauses when she realizes I won't move. "Please, just listen," she continues, her voice suddenly softer and almost begging. "Your dad isn't doing well. We don't know how long he has left, and he keeps going in and out of the hospital. I'm at a loss, Oliver." Ah, the old-fashioned "your father's health card." Although she didn't state it directly, it was obvious that she was implying that he might not have much time left. I'm not heartless, you see. I don't want him to be in pain, but I can't just abandon my life and run to their side after everything they've done to me. I try to be impartial when I say, "I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not their band-aid. However, this isn't my issue. You've had years to work this out with Dad." She stares at me as if I just smacked her, her face displaying a mixture of amazement and hurt. "You can't just show up now and expect me to solve things?" She insists. "I'm not asking you to fix anything. I just need you to be there. For the family." I nearly chuckle as my resentment flares. For the family? Which family? The one who, except when it was convenient, hardly noticed me? The one who only gets in touch with me when they need something? That's manipulation, Mom. Not a family. Her eyes enlarge, and for a moment I fear she will argue with me. Instead, she simply bursts into tears at my doorstep. I'm at a loss on what to do when she breaks down. I can't exactly close the door in her face, but I'm also not going to allow her in. For the first time in my memory, I see my mom cry as I stand there feeling like a stranger in my own house. "Look," I begin, my voice a little softer. "I understand that this is difficult for you. I do. However, I'm not your fallback option. I'm not here to solve all the problems. You have to deal with the decisions you made." She wipes her eyes and glances up at me, and I notice a glimmer of rage taking the place of the sadness. "Oliver, we did the best we could. You have no idea what it was like to raise you all and deal with everything. We were trying to keep everyone else alive, so we didn't have time for you." There it was, the justification I had heard all my life. Different day, same story. "That's not my fault," I eventually say, as I should have done years ago. "You decided to have 5 children. You decided to ignore me and concentrate on everyone else. I didn't make that choice. You did. You're trying to make me feel bad about it now." "No, Mother," I refuse. She simply stands there, gazing at me as if I were a complete stranger. Perhaps she is. Perhaps Mom's now realizing that I'm more than just the quiet kid she could overlook because I wasn't making any bother. I'm done hiding. She finally says something. "That's it then? Are you simply going to ignore us?" I give a headshake. "No, Mother. It's been a while since you abandoned me." She had nothing to say about that. "I'm just walking away at last." She turns and leaves, making her way back to her vehicle. I feel a strange mixture of feelings as I watch her leave. Yes, there is a melancholy side to me, but overall I feel liberated. I feel as though I've finally let go of something that I've been holding on to for too long. I return inside, shut the door, and simply sit there, absorbing everything. After she departs, there is silence. I feel lighter, like if I'm finally escaping a shadow that has followed me all my life. No messages, no letters, no calls, and I feel tranquil for the first time in years. There is no family conflict hanging over my head or remorse pulling me down. I prioritize my life, friends, and career. I'm living for me, and it feels great. After a month, I begin to believe that perhaps they've finally understood. Perhaps they've come to terms with my leaving. Then, however, an email appears in my mailbox. It's brief, just a few lines, but it conveys all the information I require. "Dad passed away last night," Ethan wrote, instead of my mother or father. "I thought you should be aware." I look at the email for a while, unsure of how to react. I knew this would happen, so I'm not shocked. However, I also don't feel depressed. To be honest, I don't feel anything. Although I know that this would only be another chance for them to re-engage with me, I feel compelled to reply and perhaps give my condolences. I terminate the email without responding, giving them another opportunity to drag me back into their world, guilt me, and tell me I owe them something I can't provide. I go about my day with a sense of freedom. I no longer exist in their universe, and for the first time, I'm really cool with that. Something inside of me finally calmed down after I closed the email from Ethan. For once, it seemed as though a door had closed and remained closed. I had lived with one foot in that house for a large portion of my life, constantly questioning whether I had done enough and whether they would actually notice me this time. It's odd, though, because I knew there was no turning back after everything. Families are often described as having an unbreakable bond that keeps you together no matter what. But as I stood there, I realized at last that family isn't about kinship or duties. It's about genuine connection, respect, and trust, all of which I had been giving out but never truly getting back. The weeks that followed were unexpectedly peaceful. I had been fighting for something that never existed in the first place. I kept waiting for that old sting of guilt to set in, that tiny voice telling me I was being too harsh and that I should reach out. But there were no emails, calls, or unexpected notes from distant relatives attempting to patch things up. However, it never materialized this time. Rather, I had a sense of calm that I hadn't experienced in, well, ever. I began to concentrate more on the things that were important to me: my future, my friends, and my job. When Lily and Kara saw the change, Lily finally remarked, "So, does it feel like a weight's been lifted yet?" After a night out for drinks. I nodded and laughed, really laughed. Yes, it does, in fact. It seems like I've finally let go of some luggage that I've been carrying around pointlessly. Kara, in her characteristically direct manner, lifted her glass and remarked, "It's about time, Oliver." And they were correct. Welcome to living your life for yourself. I was living my life for myself for the first time. I wasn't keeping an eye out for the next unanticipated demand or guilt trip. I wasn't questioning every decision I made and worrying about disappointing someone. I was free. Occasionally, I wondered if Ethan and the others might try to reintegrate with me. However, I was now certain that I would never allow it to occur. In those peaceful moments, I finally realized something that had taken me my entire life to learn. Just because someone calls themselves family doesn't mean you owe them anything. I had set my boundaries, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to uphold them. If someone is merely there to take, you don't owe them any parts of yourself. Perhaps in a better world, things might have turned out differently. True family supports you, respects your limits, and views you as a genuine person, not a safety net, backup plan, or someone who just matters when it's convenient. We may be in a different situation if they had gotten in touch with us sooner and genuinely wanted to establish a relationship. However, it was not the case. I knew I didn't need to bear that burden any longer as I glanced about at the life I was creating, my career, my friends, and my freedom, because I had already given enough of myself. For the first time in my life, I knew I had made the correct decision, so I didn't need their approval or to keep looking back to see whether I had. And that was how it all turned out. No big family reunion, no big confrontation. With nothing but the broad road ahead, it was just me, at last out of the shadows. And truthfully, I feel as though I'm at last at home.